through every name. That's great. All right, we're recording now. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I'm sure there's some new folks joining us, so I'll start from the very beginning and say that my name is Josh Hadro. I'm the managing director of the IIIF Consortium. This is kind of capping off what's been, I think, a really great week of sessions in the tradition of the working meetings that IIIF has had for a long time now. Obviously moved online due to all of these pandemic events. But I'm really grateful for everybody's putting in the time to kind of sit in front of a computer and do this via Zoom. I think we've had some really useful conversations. And yeah, this is meant to kind of launch us or describe some of the work that we're doing in the coming months and weeks. And it won't be 100% descriptive of everything that happened this week. So we will be getting recordings and links to the notes documents and things like that out to folks who registered for this event as soon as we can. There's a lot of links and a lot of stuff to wrangle, so it'll I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to make promises. I think in the next week or a little bit after that, I think we'll have it all compiled and gathered together. So look for that. It'll be sent to the email address through which you registered for this event. So let me, yeah, there we go. Meg, okay, Meg relieves me and says yes, in about a week. Thanks, Meg. So specifically here in this last hour, here are the topics. There is a chance for some questions and broader discussion. If there's something not covered here, we'll open it up. But I think the things that, thinking about what I wanted to talk through and work through, it's covered in a lot of this. So one of the things we've been talking about for a while in the community is this idea of badging and as both kind of a validation effort for implementations, but also as a social effort and a little bit of a way to kind of just get some excitement going in the community about implementations and the levels at which they are the most useful in the sense of interoperability. So we'll get a little bit of report back about the badging session that we had, I think on Tuesday it was. So Claire Knowles from the outreach group is going to talk us a bit through that. Then we'll get a little bit of an overview of just some of the TSG discussion, the technical specification discussion that we had this week, and also a few other points. Not all of the groups had sessions this past week, but just getting an overview, a holistic view into basically what the milestones are that we can expect there. And then a couple other things on the sort of community outreach and IIIF consortium side. So we want to touch just briefly on IIIF training. That's a big thing that we've kind of undertaken. It's always been something that's part of the work that IIIF consortium and others have been doing, but especially in this era of no travel, we really poured a lot of energy and resources into developing some IIIF training. It's been really successful, so I think we just want to get a sense of how we could make it even more useful, get some additional topics and domains where maybe we can extend that. And then I want to touch on the annual conference. In some ways, it's probably the last thing folks want to talk about is another remote meeting experience right on the heels of one like this. But I think that can also be a really useful time to start thinking through that. So we just want to, get some conversation going about what the best experiences you've had in terms of virtual presentation and virtual conference work has been. And then we'll just end with a few thoughts on calls to action and things that we'd love to see people do in the coming months. So I think first I will let Claire kind of give a summary and just some report back on the badging conversations that have been happening for a little while and and what we can do next. So Claire, do you want me to stay on these slides or do you want me to stop sharing?
Stay on this one. Yeah, if you stay on this one and I'll let you know when to go forward. So thanks to everyone who came to the IIIF badges session on Tuesday. And it was really good conversation, and huge thanks to Leander who brought this topic through to the IIIF outreach group, and we have been talking about this for a while, and who produced a great slide deck of why he thinks we should do this, which is one of the reasons the outreach group support this, which is why we've brought it forward to this full meeting. So huge thanks to Leander for that. And if you didn't come along, please look through the slides or watch the talk back through the video that's been shared. And the notes that is linked there also has a link to the slides. So please do that. And what we want to do is get feedback on that. We had some conversation, but as always, the conversations gets very lively when you get to the hour and we run out of time. So please do add things to the notes. And if you were there, or if you come back, and when you're thinking about this over your Christmas holiday period, you can go and add them at that stage as well. So please do that. And Josh, if you can forward me on. So what the next stage is us to review feedback that we had in the conversation and that people add to the notes document of how we can go forward with this. It is seen as something that would be good to do sort of as a checklist of those implementation stages. So yes, you've done IIIF, but what can you do to make sure things are reusable, that people can find your content, that you've got those manifests, etc. So how do we take this forward to make sure that people can do it and it doesn't become onerous for the community or something that becomes out of date, that we have a sort of a one stage of doing it, but it's not sustainable. So that's what we want to look at, how we go forward to make this something we can adopt. Is it a checklist? Is it that we have a community group? So there's lots of suggestions that came forward at the meeting on Tuesday, but nothing was agreed as the next steps. So that's what we want to do, is sort of take that feedback and look at what we can do to take this forward and how we support those institutions to gain badges and make sure that they're there. And it's not just a sort of little icon in the corner, but it does mean something that helps people implement them and understand why. So we're going to take this forward at our next outreach group meeting, which is at the end of January. We're not meeting in between Christmas and New Year, so we'll be meeting on the 26th of January. So please join us then and come along with any feedback, because we'll discuss it then about how we take this forward. So thank you. And any questions about the badges, please ask them on the outreach channel on Slack, and we'll pick them up. And I know Leander's here, so hopefully he'll see them with you as well. Thank you. That's me, Josh.
That's great. Thanks, Claire. And I should say thanks to the outreach group in general for kind of helping us move that forward. And Leander, just a great idea and suggestion, and it's really sparked a lot of a lot of creative thought about kind of what makes this community, so exciting is like that shared enthusiasm. And this is sort of a nice way. One of the reasons I think it's really appealing is that it's a nice way to extend that even further, to kind of bank it, communicate it, and get some returns on it in terms of broader adoption and and stronger implementations and things like that. Great. So why don't we turn next? Let me make sure I'm not skipping something. Whoops, sorry. Yes, and I think, Rob, this is you. Shall I stop sharing if you want to share that timeline slide?
Yes, please. And Meg, could you make me co-host, please? So I can.
Oh, sorry.
Quite all right. I do have slides for this one. Well, slide.
Okay, you are co-hosted.
Thank you. Okay. So hopefully, in a second, you should see the timeline slide. Yes?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this is, as far as we can tell, the timeline for technical work starting in 2020 and looking forwards for IIIF. So of course, life as we knew it ended sort of February, March, depending on where you are in the world. But it does indeed go on. Then in June, we had the release of the change discovery API version 0.9, image and presentation APIs version 3.0. Of course, those were timed to go along with the conference, which was virtual as is this one. And yeah, signal sort of a nice starting point for the next iteration of IIIF specs, having really seen no new big specification updates for sort of 3 or 4 years, while we were working, of course, on 3.0. Then I think it was in July, the Maps technical specification group was launched. And then a couple months ago, Auth was launched. Oh, I realize my video is not on. I can turn that on easily while still sharing the screen. Start video. Apologies for that. Which has had a couple of meetings now and a discussion here at the working group session. Then the beginning of next year, we foresee the start of the search TSG, which is to update the search API, content search API. And we just had in the last hour a good discussion about use cases to sort of foreshadow some of that work. So then looking ahead in the timeline, the discovery group thinks that sort of the middle of next year, there will be content state version 0.9, which we talked about in the discovery group, but essentially it is how to transfer the state of the content, but from one system to another, such as from a search engine to a IIIF viewer. And the final version of the change discovery API, which is how does that search engine know where IIIF resources are around the web. The Auth group thinks that there could be a draft of a basic spec done by the middle of next year, and the search also, the use cases can be documented, so that will set the scope for the work, but also an update for the syntax to be more in line with image and presentation 3. The Maps TSG have 2 different deliverables. There is a linking extension of essentially for navigation or visualization of geographic content, which would that one would come the middle of next year, and the beginning of 22, the georeferencing extension that would allow more integrated alignment of maps and the space that they depict. The beginning of 22 would also be a beta form for the Auth spec, so that would be something that implementers could take the spec, go off and implement it, and see what breaks, and then of course hopefully come back and we can fix it for a second beta, which then by sort of sometime in the latter half of the year, we would expect that the implementation experience from Auth would allow us to have a proposed recommendation, which could then go to the TRC for approval towards an Auth 2.0 spec. At the same time, we would expect a search beta, so an implementable search API version 2.0 with the new features that are being discussed. And then the beginning of 23 would be the proposed recommendation for search. So the reason for the proposed recommendations is that the TRC, of course, will be involved with all of those discussions, and we can't really say this is going to be the final one because, of course, there could be some feedback from the TRC analysis of the specs that we would then want to take back to the TSG for enhancing. So that all of that said, these dates are of course looking to the future, and as we have seen this year, the future is pretty uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 12 months, and hence all of these could be over much more quickly, or they could spread out into 24 or later. So this is the projection of where we think the community will be, but it's certainly not a promise or any guarantee that we'll get there on these timelines. It's our best estimate, our best guess. Do we want to do discussion in line, Josh, or do we want to wait until the end?
I think this is a good point. This is a specific enough chunk. I would say if there are questions or discussion on these, let's go for it.
Yes, if there's any questions or thoughts, comments, please do put them into the chat or raise your hand or just speak up. Feel free to just unmute and ask. Is that one uncomfortable silence?
Well, let me interrupt the uncomfortable silence, and maybe as people are formulating their questions, just to point out, I think there is an opportunity to, we're still basically looking, assuming Search TSG charter is approved in the coming weeks, basically there's an opportunity for folks to volunteer. We're still looking for chairs for that group, right? That's kind of an opportunity. And there's obviously the ability to participate in any of these groups, but I think that's a particular one where we'll be doing a call for chairs ostensibly in the near future.
Yeah, thank you for that, Josh. And indeed, please, if maps, auth, or search is something that you're interested in, and particularly if there's something that you are looking to implement in the coming months, please do participate in those groups. It's really important to know about the requirements and use cases early so that they can be taken into account. And of course, it's equally vital to have implementations so that we know that what the specs are saying is something that is useful and implementable. So Trip had a question about the significance of the red and blue. There is absolutely no significance whatsoever. It's just the red, blue of the IIIF logo multiplied out. And to break up the monotony of a black background and only one color.
Great. Any other questions or even, I guess, reactions to any of this work that Rob's just described? Okay. See a smiley face, then great. We'll take that as a positive. I mean, I think this is a testament to, in part, to the fact that I think this is we've been talking about these steps for a while. I think some of these conversations started, I think, even back in Ann Arbor. And so it's not a new timeline. It's we're just getting further clarity the closer we get to some of these. But thanks, Rob, for putting that together. Let me figure out how to get back to my slides for the next section here. How about that? There, is that folks seeing the slide again?
Yep.
Yep. Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Then up next, I think I will stay on the slides, but I think Glenn, I'll ask Glenn to just say a word. We talked about this at the beginning, but it is something we're pretty proud of. as an organization. So Glenn, yeah, just say a little bit about the IIIF training and lead us through maybe a question on topics or domains.
Sure, thanks, Josh. So if you're here on Tuesday, you remember I gave an update of the training. That's it, thank you. And I just wanted to talk briefly about the future plans and also ask for some topics and some questions. So currently, as I mentioned on Tuesday, we have an Introduction to IIIF course, which covers the basics of image presentation annotations. And I said that currently we've run 4 courses and a total of 62 people have completed the course. So if you go into the next slide, Josh. So going forward, we're hoping to continue to run these every month. I say month-ish. The next course is actually going to be the first week in February. So we're going to have a couple of months break there, but we're hoping for pretty much every month. And then one in February will be friendly to the West Coast. It'll be a US-friendly West Coast time zone. But we'll continue to do future training sessions and we'll be switching them between different time zones. So hopefully you'll find one that fits your time zone. And as well as doing more sessions, we're working on updating it to use IIIF version 3. Currently, the training is kind of stuck at version 2, but this will involve finding a way to do IIIF images using 3 in an easy and free way. And then also looking for a manifest editor that supports 3. And then also finally updating annotations so that they use the web annotations which are used in 3. We're also going to look at ways we can offer free ways of hosting IIIF manifests. So in the course, we currently use a local Chrome web server, which has worked really great, but we always come across issues when the students are trying to use those manifests with certain tools, particularly ones that are hosted on HTTPS. So they're the 2 kind of core developments that we hope to do over the coming 6 months. And then the questions for you really is, thank you, what topics should we cover? So there's been interest in training, targeting training at specific groups and organizations, and we're going to look into this further. But a wider question is, what training sessions would you be interested in? We've had some feedback from the first course that a stage 2 or an advanced version of the introduction workshop would be useful, but we're really interested in hearing what topics that should cover. And if you have any ideas, please feel free to put them into the chat or contact the staff. There are particular topics around IIIF that you'd really like to see a training course on. Is there kind of like a introduction and then a stage 2, and what sort of things would they cover? So if you do have any other ideas about that, do let us know either in the chat or reach out to us directly. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. And yeah, and I'm curious if folks have immediate reactions. It'd be great to hear them now. I just put this in the chat, but one thing I guess we like to talk about the training to folks who attended this meeting, partly because we want you to be aware of it, but we also recognize that if you're at this meeting, there's probably a good probability that the training is not for you necessarily. So it's a lot of it is us letting you know, so that if you have colleagues or you find yourself in a situation talking to folks who might benefit from it, that you're aware of it, and so that's partly too, I think, some of the idea of what are other topics. Maybe a way to phrase it is like, are people asking any of you all questions that you could see translating easily into like a training module, either one-off or a couple days, things like that. Anybody want to chime in here and now and let us know if training has come up at your institution, for example?
I would like to ask one question about the training for trainers. Do you think something about that? I would like to try to make some training here in Serbia, or maybe in Balkan. It covers Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro. Is the same language, so 3 states are covered.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, that's a great question. My answer to that is yeah. So we talked about training the trainers a bit. I'll be honest, we focused initially just on trying to get the materials really solid and working through a couple of courses. One thing I think we also want to point out is that we do charge for training, partly, well, for a number of reasons, to cover costs and to do things, but we also think it's really important that all the training materials are totally openly available. So we do it in a cohort model, and we think it's really valuable to do the synchronous learning. But I think Glenn's got the URL on the slide. All of this stuff there is totally open resources, so we're not doing anything that's not there. So I mentioned that because we have already seen a few folks reach out to us talking about translating that training into other languages. And so that's like, not only is that allowed, that's like a really desirable thing. So we'd love to hear about that and help you with that. And then, like, I think that's, to the next level, we should follow up with you and to any others who are interested. I think we'd love to, have you sit in on the training, or, we can find the right, the right mechanism to get you involved and help you maybe do a spin-off or whatever it might be. That's, specifically to you, I think we'll follow up with you on that and figure out the best way to do it. But to others, just so you know, that's definitely something that we are eager to support and extend. Yeah, it's kind of the beautiful part. It's, it's something Meg said earlier in the ambassadors session earlier this morning, that one of the beautiful things is that about the IIIF community is that people sort of naturally do this ambassador work, this outreach work. And it just is very much part of the way that they participate in the IIIF community. And so I guess I mentioned that because I think training is just another way that hopefully we on the IIIF consortium side can support that and like leverage it and make it even more efficient and useful. Okay, I'm seeing a couple of excuse me, comments here. More advanced training on batch processes and around images and manifests, and setting up infrastructure. I think that's a great suggestion. We've talked a couple of times about the fact that like one of the rare areas of sort of mystery is manifest generation, and a lot of folks just end up doing custom coding and development to do manifest generation at scale. But yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Joe mentions manifest generation, processing images. This is great. Thank you all. Let's see. Dawn says, I can see a basic training splitting off into advanced trainings geared towards scholars and reuse that. So that's another area, or that sort of leads me just to thinking like more topical and domain specific trainings, one-offs potentially. This is great.
Could we ask about
Mike,
Peter's as well?
Oh yeah. So if I missed it, sorry, then go ahead. What?
Yeah, Peter Binkley's one I think is interesting. Could you speak a bit more about that one?
That was about offering a session to our product owners so that they get a sort of top-down overview of the IIIF ecosystem and possibilities, so that when they're then talking to devs, they can say, this seems to be part of IIIF, could our system do it?
Mm-hmm. No, thank you.
That's great. Yeah, and that sort of gets to the question of, I guess we should probably start calling it like workshops and training, because it's maybe if it's not training as directly, maybe it's still a useful kind of workshop topic that we could help facilitate. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm missing some of these in the chat. Please chime in or chime in to let me know that I've missed it.
I was thinking about something, so there are along these lines of these specialized versions that the consortium could help with, is almost making a framework of training. In other words, I would probably need to do some local specialization of some of these trainings in any case, but a skeleton of what it might be good to do for researchers, for faculty, for teaching faculty, for students would be great. And then I could specialize it from there. Training
That's
cookbooks.
a great, yeah, that's funny. That's the thing that came to my mind too. And I think it's great to hear. And I think that's very much the way that we're thinking about it. I think Glenn, Meg, and I are very much trying to yeah, just think of like the different things that we're doing, like how can we generalize it in some way and make it templatable or exactly that sort of thing. So it sounds like, yeah, something like that for product owners would be good. That's where I mentioned this in the, I think it was the opening call, but we're trying to develop like one sheets or one pagers, you know, like IIIF for CIOs or IIIF for deans. And I think that's a great one there. IIIF for product owners using specific vocabularies there. This is great. Well, great. I'm glad we're recording this because that means we'll have a great record of all the suggestions here. I may keep us moving just so we can get through all these other topics, but by all means keep throwing those ideas in the chat, and this isn't the end of it, you know, on Slack or by email. You know, if an idea strikes you in the middle of the night, probably wait till morning, but then feel free to email us and suggest that. Well, great. Then another kind of discussion topic that I wanted to open up, and a little bit similar to maybe what we were just discussing in certain ways, is this idea of how we as a community have these rituals, these kind of landmark rituals. And so the annual conference has been kind of such an important kind of flagship event for disseminating IIIF, for corralling enthusiasm about IIIF, for serving as a deadline. That's been a really interesting thing we've talked about a couple of times, is that, you know, that without conferences and things like that, you know, sometimes people just sort of never end up doing the last step or the last bit of documentation or whatever it might be for an implementation or a project or something like that. So, you know, I think in thinking about this topic, I really want to, it's really geared toward a positive spin. And I think, you know, I think we are happy with how we've done, you know, made the pivot to some of these online presentations. Just to set the context, we will keep our fingers crossed, as I've pointed out here on the screen, but the 2021 annual conference, it seems very unlikely that it will have any really major international in-person components. You know, as Rob was saying a little bit earlier, like the future is uncertain, but I feel pretty confident saying that. So it looks like we will be doing another year of annual conference or some kind of landmark event in a format similar to, you know, to what we've been doing. That said, you know, and as I did mention, I think we're very happy with IIIF Week reached more people than you know, any conference for IIIF has done before. I think we're pretty happy with how this working meeting worked, you know, trying to emulate the ritual of gathering in a city and working on some kind of specific and concrete topics. So I think we've done good work, but, you know, in the idea of never being totally satisfied and kind of believing that we can always keep improving and working towards new and better solutions and outreach models and things like that. I guess I really just want to open the floor up a bit to say, to ask you all, now that you know, depending on your calendar or where you were 10, 11 months into this stay at home situation, we're really eager to hear what the best kinds of virtual community gatherings you've experienced. What have you participated in? And not just, I mean, it's useful to hear citations of peer organizations or events so that we can go look through them. But I guess most specifically, I would love to ask you all, like, what are particular elements that you think we could borrow for this next annual meeting? What are particular elements that we can borrow to make it as you know, as useful as possible, also just as a good user experience? Are there software tools that we could use to you know, just smooth some of the logistical elements. So at a really high level, like what are good, open and community oriented practices that we could emulate? And then are there any, specific, tools or pieces of software? So I'll open it there and ask people, what other things have you done this year that we could benefit from?
This is Stefano. I wanted to bring up the, the
Please.
location and the, virtual part of the conferences and meetings. We mentioned it yesterday casually during some chat, but I'm wondering, well, first off, June might be very different from what it is now. We don't know, of course, yet, but CDC guidelines and recommendations permitting, I'm wondering if people would be interested in doing semi-local gatherings where you mentioned, Josh, earlier that, there's a good point that, many people will have their budget, their travel budgets curtailed, and but maybe semi-local meetings might be easier to do, maybe even in contemporary, East Coast, West Coast, Europe, some sort of, where people actually sit at the table, but they don't need to be all sitting at the same table. And we can try to connect virtually for who can't travel to any of the hubs. I wonder if that, that could be a good way to, to compromise with the situation.
Yeah, thanks, Stefano. I certainly, I mean, I will say again, like we have our fingers crossed. So to the extent that I think we could support any of that, local meetups that maybe feed into, regional or bigger events happening simultaneously, we're super into it. I think, yeah, as you said, I think we'll have to wait and see where we get in certain locations. Other suggestions I see in the chat, pre-recorded videos published in advance for lightning talks. So yeah, we did I think it was 7 in total for this conference. And I don't know if you want to talk about, like, did the logistics of that work for us? I mean, I think it seemed to work. Were there any headaches that would cause us to be hesitant on that front? May not be near a mute button. But I like the idea too of yeah, we could try to require it in Prezi 3. I guess one question I've been thinking through or trying to think through is the synchronous versus asynchronous aspect, or like the spectrum of those things. So trying to figure out if we tried to compress things into a relatively short span this week. Ostensibly, the annual conference would be somewhat larger, and then we have to start weighing factors of like simultaneous events, overlapping things, versus the idea of spreading things out into many more time zones to try and accommodate more participation from around the world. We've seen some conferences that are actually spread out over the course of a month. I'm wondering if anybody has strong strong reactions, positive or negative, to those various models. Month of IIIF is too long. I'm seeing that. It would only be a little bit, maybe each week. Let's spread out. I'm just making sure I'm not missing other. Is that somebody waiting to chime in? Okay, yeah, I seeing seeing comments toward the condensed. It is, I mean, I think, well, you know, I don't know, we'll see in the coming months. It is, it's draining in a way that is different than in-person meetings, but there does seem to be some synergies and other positive elements to building things together, coordinating them. Other thoughts and reactions. I guess, you know, another piece is just how can we, this question is a little bit hard because it's a little bit asking the wrong audience, but how, I think it's still important to think through and for us to talk about as a community is like, how can we do better about bringing in bigger, broader audiences, you know, newer folks. You know, the annual conference is a little bit different to this working meeting, which presumes a bit of a baseline connection and time investment with IIIF. But the annual conference, you know, has been a little bit more of a, you know, has a showcase element and an invitation to newcomers element. Are there thoughts there? Are there things that you've seen other communities do that we might emulate?
Can I say something? Last month I was on one conference. It was combined conference. There are only speakers in the room, and the watchers, or some of the speakers, were on Zoom. So it was something combined because of circumstances. There are a maximum. There are big hall, and we are all spread through the hall. And I don't know, maybe something like that. In local, I don't know, think Europe in several points, and to be connected through Zoom or something like that in some time.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, I like that idea a lot. I think that's got some resonance with what Stefano was suggesting, and yeah. I think partly too that there's something appealing. I think is it. I'm trying to think of the community that does that. There's a community that does kind of a global day of X. I don't know if it's digital preservation. I wish I could remember, but they do sort of global day of X, but that means local events, you know, that maybe feed in or even have a report back mechanism to a kind of centralized conference element, but otherwise it's quite distributed. And I think IIIF may lend itself as a community to some of that kind of thing.
There's at least one, I think it was actually Twitter based, but still one event that just went all day, like you're saying, but with an approach of kind of just an unrelenting series of lightning talks. It starts to feel unrelenting after a while, but
unrelenting, good or bad?
And, you know, depends on your mood, I guess. But just, you know, it goes all day, and you propose for the time zone that you can fit it in. So presumably your people are watching by your people, I mean, either geographically or thematically or whatever, are watching your stuff because that's what they care about.
Yeah, I think that makes good sense to me. And that a little bit maybe is an extension of some of the model we tried with IIIF Week, which lent itself to regional showcases. So we had showcases in Japan, China, and Brazil that worked a little bit like that. But we could lean into it even more and basically just put together a toolkit to reference something we were talking about earlier. Just say, like, you know, all we need is a volunteer from a place willing to be our point of contact who, you know, would help us, yeah, just with connections, promotion in a local topic or region. And then there's some logistical challenge, but yeah, I think that could be a big piece of what we do.
You might call those people ambassadors.
Oh, that's an intriguing idea. Yes, indeed. Thanks, Peter, for the link. We'll take a look at that. As I said, this is great. So much chat that I want to. If I'm missing anything, please feel free to chime in directly and just unmute. This is great. I guess, one other just piece to add to this is, are there pitfalls to avoid, just to inflect the question? Is there anything we definitely should not do? I mean, it sounds like we definitely should not have a month of IIIF. So we've heard that. We probably won't do that. Are there other pitfalls to avoid? Just major things that that you've seen go wrong? Don't move to Microsoft Teams. I'm, never say never, but I'm pretty confident we are not going to do that. But this is good. Are there, other things? I guess I'm thinking too of like any other virtual conferences experiences that people have had that maybe didn't serve the need they were trying to serve. Claire suggests a day of IIIF examples for those new to IIIF, which we could push at our institutions. I think if I'm understanding that right, I think to me, partly what I've thought about is like trying to use some of our IIIF YouTube actually to like some of the playlists that we can put together now that we've accumulated some really good sets of discrete talks and connections, and basically virtual IIIF showcase that is kind of always available, and we can slice and dice in certain ways. But maybe there's something really compelling to a live or a synchronous version of that too. Okay, well, this is great. I really appreciate. Oh, here we go. Yeah, bad experiences relating to time zones. I will say that is it is a good problem to have. So we're grateful for the difficulty, but it is a very real thing in the IIIF community, especially as we're trying to grow a bit more. I think we still have a strong historical North American and Europe, UK lean to rituals, and even partly to some of the tools that we use. But I think we're trying to be more diligent about rotating time zones for the technical review committee, for example. But I think we're trying to figure out the best ways we can do that for an annual conference.
Yeah, I wanted to back that. I think that Asia is probably the biggest issue because, South America and Africa, it's just a matter of outreach, while Asia is a technical problem where we have, big time zone skew. I don't really have a good suggestion for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's just it's an important point to kind of keep raising. And I think, Meg talked about it earlier today, in the ambassador program she's really been leading is not the solution, but it is an important effort to, to kind of have, so that we have points of contact, at least folks who can at least help us be points of connection if we can't always have synchronous meetings. This is great. Any last thoughts on here? I mean, as I've said before, this isn't the last point of contact here. We'll keep talking about this, and we'll probably form a program committee quite soon. But last thoughts kind of here for this afternoon on a Friday, or evening, morning, wherever you might be.
One thing that I think unites some of what I feel like I'm hearing in the training and the conference is whether IIIF is approaching or has started to hit the eternal September problem, and how are we going to handle that, or address? Handle is probably a little dramatic. Yeah, sure. I can say yeah. Yes. The eternal September problem being hitting a point where there are just so many new people coming in or wanting to get enough new people that you keep needing to for the health of the organization and the format, you keep having to re-explain new things, but you also can't leave out the people who have been around.
I think that's that's very real. And I don't have the link quite handy, but there's a nice lyricist document that talks about the life cycle of their particular framework is open source projects, and the ways that you kind of there are different activation energies almost for different phases of a life cycle, and it's got a similar there's a similar issue, you know, getting past startup phase and but then moving on. It's, you know, not to minimize it, but I think that's also partly in the category I like to call like nice problems to have. It's definitely a challenge, but it's better than, you know, just begging anyone for basic interest. So yeah, I think that's a nice way to think of it, and we'll have to find the right ways to manage that. All right, just in the interest of the last few minutes here, let me just open it up a bit. Well, I guess we've talked through this. I guess I want to just touch on these last calls to action, and we'll call this session to a close, but obviously keep the conversation going in future domains and future sessions and all that. So just wanted to leave you with a few, by no means exhaustive, but a few ways that maybe if, you know, you were energized by some of these conversations, that you might keep, you know, we might help you channel some of that energy. So one is just consider becoming a IIIF ambassador. You know, there was a session earlier today. We can get you the recording if you weren't there. In particular, I think we're really eager for folks helping us get into domains that we don't have natural contact to or connection into. So STEM, some other regional areas, that could be really helpful. So if that resonates with you, please get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to help you come on board that way. Another one that is an ongoing project, and there are many here who are doing great work. So I know Dawn, Trip, and others, I don't want to leave anyone out, but who have done amazing work helping us get to the point that we've gotten to in terms of the cookbook recipes, which are just documentations and best practice ways of implementing IIIF. We're always kind of eager to keep that momentum going. So there's a cookbook there are a set of cookbook calls. That's probably the easiest way to align, but as always, get in touch with us, and we can get you connected to that process and help you get going. We've heard a lot about a number of different TSG projects. You know, one of the ones, just to pick one out, the Discovery Group has been working for a while. And so I think in particular, getting more eyes on the content state and change discovery specifications, and in particular, some of the implementations. They're at the phase now where you know, stress testing and figuring out connections to the implementations of things like content state. The feedback on that is super valuable. So if you caught one of those sessions, please follow up, or if not, take a look at the recording. We'll have those available to you before too long. And on a complementary angle, some interesting, I think, momentum now building on the Discovery for Humans side. So a content survey of how organizations are presenting IIIF materials and implementing things like not necessarily just the discovery specifications, but ways of presenting IIIF and other materials to users. So if you know, looking at a user experience and analysis is kind of more your side of things, there are great opportunities with the Discovery for Humans group to get involved with. Yeah, and they have all these groups have calls coming up in the next few weeks or in the beginning of January. And the last one I'd be remiss in forgetting, but we are kind of ramping back up into making some efforts to grow the consortium. There are two different ways to do that, two different levels at which you can join the consortium. And you know, it is, you know, it sounds like the public radio pitch, but it is really rooted in that. It is really helps us do the work of making all the stuff we've been talking about here today, addressing, you know, approaches for new users while still promoting the work of long-term, long-standing contributors, you know, finding the right way to serve all those folks and kind of gather that momentum into a concerted set of efforts. The IIIF Consortium is the way to do that. And the more support we have of the consortium, the more that we can start expanding into different areas. We can start taking on more simultaneous work in different domains. So we'll be doing more work on this in the coming weeks, and this is kind of a perennial question, but I will urge you, if you've seen the value of IIIF, and if you kind of have been convinced and you see the work that we're doing as really valuable, consider talking to folks at your institution about joining the consortium at any of the levels. And by all means, talk with us if you would like to talk about ways of discussing that internally. We'd be happy to start those conversations. So I think now, just in the last minute or two here, I also just want to make sure I get through the right thank yous. I want to say thanks to the program committee. So Stefano, Giada, Meg, Glenn, Andrea, and Rachel, who spent a couple months getting us to this event and wrapping this up nicely. Really grateful for their thoughtful approach to doing a good online version of this working meeting. Thank you, all the group chairs. Really have put in a lot of work to giving us updates and putting together sessions. I do, particularly want to call out folks who led a number of the sessions. So both the outreach group and the IIIF editors, Mike, Dawn, Tom, Rachel, Claire, Rob, John, Simeon. Grateful for your work. It is volunteer work, and it is not what, there's a lot of aspects of the community, but a lot of it feeds into kind of these high level pieces that you help us mine. So thank you very much for that. And of course, thank you all for attending and, just giving us the gift of your time for going to these sessions. The staffers, Meg and Glenn, we couldn't have done this without the work that you did. So those are the thank yous all around. I will end there. I think that is it. Yep. And I will stop sharing and say one more time just how grateful I am for folks joining us for this virtual event. We have the last thing I think in this entire set of programming is the Mirador workshop, which is on a separate Zoom URL, and you had a separate registration process for that. So if you have emails about that, then that's where you may be going next. But otherwise, Meg, are there any other last logistical pieces before we release people to their Fridays?
I think that is, I'm just thinking, yep, no, that's it.
Okay, we did it. Well, thank you all. If we would be doing a round of applause. So if you can find the reaction button, everyone involved gets a good clap of the hands. And thanks, folks. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Bye.